Hi everyone. Every single time I publish a book, it's a tradition at this point, I like to do an AMA on the Reddit Ask Historians community and discuss the more popular questions in a YouTube video. And of course, this book is no exception. Recently, I published Achtung Tiger in cooperation with Military History Group, run by the same people who brought you Military History Visualized and Military Aviation History. And of course, the topic of this book, as you can tell, is about the Tiger. Specifically, I focus on the technical aspects of the Tiger, but the technical intelligence aspects of the Tiger. So what things about the Tiger did the Allies find out through espionage or in combat or through various other means, and what conclusions did they draw, and how did they defeat the Tiger in the end. But the question that came up most of all during the AMA wasn't about the Tiger's armor or the Tiger's gun or the Tiger's tracks or any of these other components. It was the Tiger's reputation. Why was the Tiger so famous? And that's why I decided to make a video about that topic specifically. So this is, of course, a very interesting question to ask. The Tiger, well, it's kind of a rare tank. 1,347 of them were made over the course of over 2 years. This is about 2 months of Sherman or T-34 production. Vanishingly rare thing. Other tanks of the Second World War that were also quite rare, they don't really get talked about as much as the Tiger. I mean, the Tiger was used, it was used in North Africa in tiny numbers. It was used in Italy in tiny numbers. It was used, really, its major engagements were Kursk, Normandy, and after that it was replaced with the King Tiger. But really, there's no battle in history that you can conclusively point to and say the outcome of this battle was earned by the Tiger tank. And so, well, how come 80 years later this tank is, whenever somebody says German tank, the image that comes to mind is immediately the Tiger? It is a good question, and so let's dive into it. As Marcus Pullman points out in the foreword to my book, the Tiger tank is not just a tank, it is a symbol, and it is a symbol of crisis. In 1942, the German army really wasn't getting the same results that they were used to after the campaigns of 1939, 1940, 1941. You couldn't really represent the movement of armored spearheads on a map with these broad arrows spanning hundreds of kilometers. And so, of course, the German propaganda had to make out the difference by focusing on local tactical successes. And of course, when you're focusing on local tactical successes, you can't really give credit to the generals. You have to give credit to the junior officers, the senior NCOs, which of course includes tank crews. And so, according to Pullman, German propaganda shifted its focus from the top brass to, as he puts it, ordinary guys with scruffy beards. And that was the creation of this kind of propaganda institution of the Tiger Ace. And you had all these celebrations of tank commanders, gunners with dozens or even with hundreds of kills assigned to each one of them. And everyone could kind of look at those deified figures and say, wow, you know, these people on our side, how can we lose? So as a result of this propaganda effort, you get the Tiger Ace, this kind of figure, almost mythological figure, like a hero on the battlefield who effortlessly throws aside dozens of enemies. But that was just what it was. It was a myth. If you watch this video where Military History Visualized interviews Dr. Roman Teppel, which you definitely should, he discusses this and how this myth was created, and how he talked to even surviving veterans, German veterans, who said, "No, this is nonsense. These are all made-up numbers." Either made up in period pieces because, you know, they were... If your unit is contrasted against something like the SS that's propping up Michael Whitman and saying, oh, well, are we any worse than that? We need our own hero. Well, let's take a look at this guy. He might have destroyed, I don't know, 100 tanks. Seems right. Sure, put him in the papers. Why not? And that was kind of a self-perpetuating thing because the more units saw these claims, the more they wanted to advertise their own guys and advertise their own fame. Dr. Teppel spoke with surviving veterans, Otto Carius and Alfred Rubel, and they both said, this just wasn't how we counted kills. Counting personal kills was an exception, not the rule. Even some veterans who did count kills, Teppel spoke with them, and they said, no, the official figures that you can read in history books today are fiction. I never destroyed this many tanks. I never claimed to have destroyed this many tanks. It was just sort of something that was put together in these publicity reports, and, well, got noted down in history, unfortunately. Of course, these exaggerations didn't just occur during the war. They kept happening after the war. In particular, one of the most damaging careers to the military history and this whole tiger myth was the career of Franz Kurowski, who, according to Teppel, sort of resorted to outright fiction by the end of his career. Unfortunately, to this day, his books are still published as history and held up as established fact. But these semi-fictionalized careers of Tiger aces aren't the only thing that drives the Tiger's reputation today. The hardware itself, of course, is greatly celebrated in many video games or movies or other works of fiction. And there's actually an interesting question asked on the Ask Historian subreddit they answered previously. Reddit user mob19151 asked, how come German tanks are fetishized compared to other tanks of the Second World War? And in my answer, I refer to a definition by Steven Zaloga in his book Armored Champion. He discusses what kind of tank is the best in each time period that he covers. And one of the things he brings up is these two different classifications. The soldier's choice, where individual soldier is preoccupied with survival most and foremost, so he wants a tank with the biggest gun, thickest armor. If it's convenient, it should also drive fast, but, gun and armor, most important things of all. And these are things that win one-on-one engagements. Unfortunately, war is not a one-on-one engagement, and so the commander's choice, the other choice given in the book, focuses on longer-term things. So fuel efficiency, parts replacement, how far the tank can drive before it has to be overhauled, how many of them you can have, etc., etc. And these are all factors that win not one-on-one engagements, they win battles, and they win wars. Unfortunately, when we look at media and fiction, the drama is derived from the one-on-one duels. Like, if you've seen Fury, which I'm sure most of you have that big battle with Brad Pitt's Sherman versus the Tiger tank, and there's lots of explosions going on around, and it's very, very dramatic. What you really don't see is, well, there's one Tiger on the battlefield. What happened to the rest of its platoon? They ran out of fuel, they broke down, who knows? It wouldn't be a very interesting movie if Brad Pitt was sitting there looking at spreadsheets, kind of tallying up, how many of our tanks are going to be suitable for combat at the end of the day, and you see his counterpart on the other side of the front lines going, scheisse, we only have one tank left. Nobody would watch that movie, but that's kind of how war is fought. The spreadsheets are fundamental to war effort, and they have been for hundreds of years. They have not gotten any more exciting to look at during this time. Video games as well. Most of us probably now are introduced to military history through video games like World of Tanks and War Thunder, which also emphasize one-on-one engagements. So everybody, the Tiger tank, I believe, was the second tank ever introduced into the very first builds of World of Tanks, the first tank being, of course, the T-34. And majority of players, they get into the game, they go, cool, Tiger tank, I'm going to grind my way to the Tiger tank, I'm going to defeat everyone in my incredible Tiger tank. If World of Tanks was a little bit more realistic, or if War Thunder was a little bit more realistic, you would spawn in and roll a die, and if you roll badly enough, your tank doesn't work. Or you don't have enough fuel to drive for the entire round, for example, or your final drive gives out and you're kind of stuck somewhere halfway through the map. No one's going to play that game. The Tiger's advantages, these soldier's choice, the armor and the gun, are represented as they would be in real life, but its disadvantages, well, they aren't. They're simply glossed over because in a video game, first and foremost, has to be fun. A movie has to be dramatic. It has to show this action. And like I said, wrangling spreadsheets is exactly the opposite of that. And if you see these two tanks, or in case of War Thunder or World of Tanks, 15 tanks duking each other out on the battlefield, there's an entire other war happening around you. And, you know, if you win the battle, you get the most kills in the battle, and then you're greeted with a message saying, well, that's great, but your enemy tanks, there's 50 Shermans that you didn't kill, and they drove around you and drove over your infantry unopposed, and now your fuel dump is on fire, and your crew has to scuttle their tank and walk back to their lines. That's not going to be a very satisfying ending for a battle where you feel like you won, and so it's not really reflected in the media that informs many of our decisions today. So in short, the Tiger tank's reputation as we know it today is the product of decades of distortions. These are both intentional and unintentional distortions. They come from either period sources or in the post-war decades, but they do significantly change the reputation of the Tiger tank from what it actually was. Which is what brings me back to my book, Achtung Tiger. As every book in the military history group, it is thoroughly sourced. This is the longest bibliography that I've had to date. Every page has footnotes, probably up to 3 or 4 or 5 footnotes per page. So everything is very thoroughly sourced. You are more than welcome to access these documents and confirm the conclusions of this book yourself, if you so wish. Achtung Tiger, How the Allies Defeated Germany's Heavy Tank, is available for purchase now. Check out the link in the description below, and for a limited time, save 10% off not only on Achtung Tiger, but on every single military history group title, including my previous book about the IS-2. If you want more Tiger content, you can catch me on a stream with the Chieftain on May 7th, and with World War II TV on May 10th.